From TMZ, millionaire Bill Burr says billionaires are rabid dogs who deserve to die. That's a pretty bold statement from a guy with a net worth of around $10 to $20 million, according to a cursory Google search. I've also heard stories that he owns a helicopter. Good for him. Bill Burr doesn't want to eat the rich, but he does want to kill them. The comedian went off on billionaires in a recent podcast episode, comparing them to rabid dogs who need to be put down. He made the comments on his Monday morning podcast, blaming billionaires for dividing the country, hoarding all the wealth, and creating a situation where working people can't afford rent and need two jobs just to stay afloat. Bill Burr, of course, is one of the most deeply troubled and ignorant individuals in media. He may have a funny presentation, but boy, is this guy dumb.
Yeah.
He is one of the stupidest people I've ever had the displeasure of listening to, except when he makes funny jokes. Those are okay. He says that the widening wealth gap in America is bad for this country because parents have to work so much they'll never get to see their kids. And the ramifications are dire. For Bill, all of these problems can be traced back to greedy billionaires who want to divide and conquer. If Bill had an IQ that was in the triple digits, perhaps he would understand that makes literally no sense. But hey, he's a comedian, not a rocket scientist.
We were talking about this a little bit today on PCC.
You should listen to our episode today because Phil absolutely went off. It was fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating because, you know, the people that Bill thinks that he's being, compassionate about, those people look at billionaires and they look at Bill and they think that they're both rich. And so this class warfare that he's fomenting, the people that he thinks he's on the side of will eat him too.
It's not that, though. It's that Bill's just genuinely stupid. Because, like, any honest assessment of the current cultural divide in this country does not lead you to conclude that billionaires are all conspiring to make it happen. This is what I tell you, my friends, you know what I can't stand? You got people on the internet and they're like, the Jews all the time. And I'm like, guys, it's not one group doing anything. And they go, yes, it is. Then you get the woke saying it's the white privilege, the white colonial. No, it's not. It's not one group. There's disparate special interests that have amassed power in a variety of different ways. Sometimes they collude together, but they are all in different areas. People like Bill Burr are just as stupid as the anti-Semitic people and just as stupid as the woke people who hate white people and the colonialism people. I've long said, if you want to figure out which conspiracy cult to exist in, just figure out which group you hate the most. If it's the 1%, you can hang out with Occupy Wall Street people like Bill Burr. If you're an anti-Semite, there's a group of white nationalist anti-Semites that are waiting for you. You can blame, if you hate white people or if you hate cis heteronormative patriarchy, that group exists. All of these groups want to put the entirety of all blame in a single group of people. And it doesn't actually play out that way. If Bill Burr took 10 seconds to even Google search how basic economics worked, he'd be like, oh, that makes literally no sense that I just said that.
He says in the clip, he says that there's so much being produced in this country and there's so much money being made in this country that it's abhorrent that all of this stuff is happening. I said, well, that may be true. Amazon may be making billions upon billions of dollars every year, but what you should be asking the question is why are you on your income not able to make a living, and then wonder why you're being taxed so much and so little of that money is coming back to you in a way that's actually effective.
The picture is very, very massive. But the idea that he is literally stating that the billionaires all get together and go, shall we have the rebel fight each other? Liberal and conservative. It's not happening at all. You got billionaires that are pro-Trump. You got billionaires that are anti-Trump. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the billionaires switch their positions. They are not fomenting or doing any kind of crackpot conspiracy. Well, half of them don't even understand politics. Zuckerberg doesn't know or care about politics. He's just milling about whatever the CIA tells him to do.
Well, and most of them anyways, as you know, if you look at any of these companies, granted, we're seeing a large shift right now in policies from like tech companies that are seeming to move slightly the other direction as the pendulum swings. But it's not like they ever gave to one party. They gave to both parties, assuming that they're going to try and get favors in return by giving to both of them. But when he talks about all of this, he's talking about it as if there's 3 or 4 people that are causing all of these problems. It's just far more complicated than that.
Yeah, it's the same thing when they talk about taxes, too. Yeah. It's like, oh, well, they need to pay their fair share, but yet their
best option would be for you to pay less taxes rather than that guy pay more.
Exactly.
Like if the idea here is that you feel wrong done by, it's not that you want this other guy to be as wrong done by as you were. The idea is that they should do less to you and less to him as well. Like they should take less of your money and less of his money rather than trying to take more of his money to even out the score so that you feel as if both of you got screwed equally.
Well, I mean, he says it himself that he thinks it's a zero-sum game. The reason you're poor is because of someone else. It's really easy to convince people that are struggling that it's someone else's fault. Just like what Tim was saying, you can find someone to blame very easily, and that's all Bill's doing. He's just catering to the inclination, the people that already have an inclination to hate the rich. But the thing that he's missing is he's the rich too. Like the people that are billionaires, like we were talking about this morning, like Elon Musk employs a lot of people at Tesla and SpaceX and all of the companies he owns, and Bezos employs a lot of people at Amazon, and the guy, and the Walton family, they employ a lot of people at Walmart. All of those companies, or those three companies, make life possible for thousands of Americans, probably tens of thousands.
What if you want to talk about, like, if he was more in depth, he's like, what if we're talking about the people at BlackRock buying up all of the homes so that people don't have access to housing and then driving up the rent? There's a conversation to be had there, but he's not going to go that in depth.
That's the board, but even like the people that own BlackRock are like everybody that owns some kind of 401k. Everybody that has their savings in the stock market. If you own just the Dow, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, you can buy that itself as a stock. Then you own a piece of BlackRock, and if you own BlackRock stock, you own all this. So it's not, you're right. It's not as simple as just these guys are the bad guys.
And they've turned billionaire with a B, like capital letter B, into a slur in a way, which is like, and it's so funny because we started with Bernie earlier saying that the second he became a millionaire, it was no longer the millionaires and the billionaires. It's now just the billionaires that you're criticizing because you want to take all of the onus off you and put it on someone else. But like you said earlier, they're not going to distinguish between the two.
Yeah, they don't care. To the average person that sits there and says Luigi was right. Right? They're like, oh, he got that CEO, blah, blah, blah. The CEO that he killed was worth about $40 million. Rumor has it that Crystal Ball is also worth $40 million. There's the amount of money of $40 million. It's a lot of money. Okay, don't.
Real quick, what day did this podcast come out?
It was on Monday. We talked about it today, but the clip is just making the rounds. I mean, this is also
the point is like $40 million. Whereas it's a lot of money, it's a very, very, very long way away from $1 billion. Yeah. And the guy that Luigi killed had $40 million. If you foment this kind of class warfare, if you're into that, Bill Burr, they're gonna come for you.
So I just have a question, a genuine question on your guys' opinion, and the audience. Feel free. I'll ask you guys this. Bill Burr's podcast. I was curious. I mean, this is incitement to violence.
I didn't know what to put for the thumbnail because it's like, is what he doing actually inciting violence?
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
So the principal rule, as someone who works in media and podcasting with a particularly large show, is that you cannot direct people to commit harm against another group of people. It may not cross into illegal territory. What would make something illegal is to direct a specific action. So if you said, I think this group of people, something should happen to it, like Bill Burr did, that's not illegal, but it violates every terms of service of every podcast platform. In this regard, I looked up his podcast. It has not been removed from, I believe, anywhere. And not only that, he has 2 large sponsors. I'm not in the business of trying to create, well, I don't know. This is the question. Do we believe it appropriate based on this man going on his show and saying that a class of individuals should be murdered? How do we feel about what, how do I phrase this? The left has no problem and had no problem for a very long time of attacking the advertiser and attacking the platform to get people that were their ideological opponents removed. How do we feel about that right now? Should we shout out the sponsors for sponsoring this show and saying they should pull their ads from his show the same way they did to us? Or should we say Bill Burr should be allowed to advocate for this murder and we're going to stand back and let him do it?
Here's what I think. I think we need to go back to just ignoring people that have an IQ lower than room temperature.
Well, I mean, that doesn't really.
I never really follow it. Yeah.
Back to the question. I mean, do you guys?
You know what I mean?
I'm genuinely curious what y'all think.
But that's what I'm getting at is like there was a time before cancel culture where people who had dumb opinions, we just said, man, whatever, he's saying a thing over there.
Right. So the question then is not do we ignore it, or I suppose you can say that would fall into the just let him advocate for this murder and we're not going to be involved in it. Is that the
we're not. We're actually advocating for the opposite here. We're calling it out. We're like, look, look at every side of this and look at what's been. We're actually giving it some air and some discussion. I think that's really what it needs.
Put a 1 in the chat if we should engage in cancel culture. And put a 2 in the chat if we should let Bill Burr call for whatever he wants to call for and just let him mind his own business. I mean it sincerely. I'm not saying that's why I didn't name the sponsors or mention which platform or anything like that.
And this language that you're hearing right now, not just what he's saying, but the othering of people that are more successful than you are is rampant in a lot of corners of the internet right now and in America in general. And he is, in a way, his talk about the degradation of the middle class is indicative of that mindset now, where when I look at this, I see there is a difference between the type of person who sees this person who is more successful than they are and sees them as somebody who has created something that they too can achieve, and somebody who sees somebody who has created something that they just feel nothing but envy for. And you tend to find that the people who take the mindset that those who are more successful than me are somehow harming others have a very, very negative or sometimes violent mindset, and that is becoming more and more common these days because of ideas like eat the rich.
Well, here's a question.
It's looking a little split, but it seems to be leaning towards he should be canceled. So I'm doing a hard poll right now. 71%, 72% say we should call out his sponsors and his platform. So I'll let that one ruminate, as it were. But make your point. We'll see where we go.
No. What I was going to say is, go back 20 years ago. All right. So Bill Burr from 20 years ago, would he be advocating for the same thing 20 years ago when he didn't have his fortune now? Or would it be different?
I think he'd largely say a lot of the same things.
Yeah.
He would be. I feel like he's just going to say what he thinks will catch him the biggest market share. Like, there's no reason to go on a show and advocate for something like this unless you're looking at a target market that shares the opinion.
He also had the opinions recently. He was on like one of the late night shows and claimed that he basically had the greatest straw man argument to the wildfires, saying that people were saying that they were doing a bad job and making people seem like they were stupid for saying that things were going wrong when there was no water in the tanks. Right? So low info.
Wow. I mean, it's 71% with 1,300 votes call out his sponsors and the platform. 29% say leave him alone.
I will say, though, there is something to be said for cancel culture when it's done right. Like, a lot of people what we came through was unreasonable. We wanted to have conversations about the things that we found to be distasteful through all the transing and all of that. And right now, in the gaming world, some of our friends, It's Based, shout out to It's Based, they're another group. They're a group that actually came out of your Discord as well. Cool. Their guy is over in, I think it's actually Sweden, is where he's based out of, but most of his devs are here. And their whole campaign right now is this what gamers want? And they're actively calling out gaming companies and some tech companies in the Linux realm for pushing trans stuff and saying, dude, get away from all of this.
I think we should cancel Bill Burr. We should boycott. And I'll tell you why. You make a good point about the scale of things. They're going to come out and they're going to be like, I thought you guys were for free speech and blah, blah, blah. Actually, we were always against calling for death and violence. The issue was, particularly when it came to, say, like Twitter and their gendering policies, Meghan Murphy said, men aren't women, though. That's the quote. And they banned her permanently for having said that. That's an opinion statement. She didn't call for violence. She didn't threaten anybody. She didn't insult anybody. She was having a conversation with someone. Remember when Zuby got suspended for saying, okay, dude?
Yeah.
Was that what he said? He said, okay, dude?
Yeah.
Yep.
He wasn't misgendering anybody. Someone snarkily responded to him, so he was like, okay, dude. It's like a whatever. And they suspended him for it, so he made the T-shirts. That's what we opposed. Bill Burr has sponsors on this podcast where he's saying people should die. And not just that, he's saying they need to be put down. That's what he's saying. That is not creating an imminent threat, so it's not illegal. But he's not just saying, when I opened the show, I said, it's not that he wants them to die. He wants them to not be alive anymore. That's a joke from Family Guy. Quite literally, he's stated in his show, he wants people to take an action against them. Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.